You look like a very concrete, sequential man.
I
Someone
am.
who's not, you know, like, hey, I'm going to call a psychic on this one. That had to be probably a reluctant act for you.
100%. I'm the last guy in the world that would be talking to a psychic. I'm a man of evidence and logic and evidence, that kind of thing. I had heard John on the radio back in '98. He was on a New York radio station, was very popular. And I remember hearing him claim to connect to people on the other side, and I thought, how ridiculous is this? How could people even believe this? And I would shut the radio off. I'd hear him again and again, and then one day...
So he kept coming back to you, kept just running into him.
On the radio, right, during my commute to Manhattan. I worked in New York, and I had many, many cases at the time, but this particular case that you reference, the original investigators had run all investigative leads to the ground. There wasn't anything they necessarily missed. So here I am many years later trying to breathe life into this case with nothing but dead ends at that point. So at some point I heard John, and I said, you know what, I'm going to call this guy. And to be candid with you, very much a skeptic. I absolutely, in my mind, believed he was a con. But what if he wasn't? That was the foyer. I called his office, and they invited me in, and that's how I met John.
John, what was the first conversation like with Bob?
The first conversation was just like a regular reading for me. Like it was something. It's not my area. Is not this. My area is I worked with regular people. I helped to connect them with their loved ones and friends in spirit, and that was my goal, right? And so now he's coming into the equation based upon one inquiry to my office. My assistant made it much more urgent to me and said, we have to get him in, we have to get him in. So I said, okay, put him in. So when he came in, I treated it like it was just any other.
You thought you were doing a reading or at least a session with him?
Yeah, well, I was going to treat it, whatever he needed me to do, I was going to treat it like as if anybody walked in. I have my process. I'm a little OCD, so I have a certain way that I have to read people, and I don't want any information. I want to just be able to be a blank slate. And I sat with him and another police guy that came in, and I gave them my big spiel, like here's how information comes through. Like I see, hear, and feel energy. Whatever I see, hear, and feel, I'm going to say. Please don't elaborate. Just say yes or no. If you have questions, hold it to the end. And then I believe you put out the evidence bags, right?
I did. I was absolutely skeptical, and I didn't want to waste my time or his time. And I was asked to bring to John any belongings or artifacts connected to whoever this person was we were looking for. Neither John nor his assistant knew anything about this case. So I had brought 5 items that belonged to our victim, Betty Fran. But that day before I went to see John, I went around my office and I grabbed other objects from other women, 4 women in my office, as control items, if you will, an experiment. And I laid all these out in front of John. They were all...
Trying to distract him, trying to disprove,
100%. Either if he starts picking
You're
up...
You're an FBI agent. You're I'm not going to take your word for it.
If he picks up one of these things and starts trying to come up with some nonsense, I'm done. I'm going to walk out. Thanks for your time. And in the beginning, he looked over these objects, and I vividly remember he kind of put his hands out and he pulled these objects away and kind of set them aside, and he said, I don't know what these things are, but they have no relevance to why you're here. And then he picked up, it was a pair of eyeglasses that belonged to our victim, and started providing information that was so specific. It wasn't ambiguous things. It was very, very specific that was utterly impossible for him to know. And
like what? Like what?
He called her by her name. He said she has 2 names. It's like Betty Fran, but she goes by Fran. He described what
that's specific.
He described what she looked like. He described how many children she had. He described things like she had a metal screw or pin or rod in her hip, which was true. And he was very careful. He says, well, she's been killed. The person that did this is either a boyfriend or a husband with a J first name, and I'm pretty sure it's the name John. And from there, the information just kept coming. And please also keep in mind, John said, when I start giving you information, don't interrupt me. Don't give me affirmation. Just listen intently. So, we're just sitting there quiet as he's throwing all the stuff, which is impossible for him to know. And my world was spinning. And then...
But the cool part for me is that this expression doesn't change. Like, there's just he's just very solid. So I have no idea while I'm doing this, is this making sense? Or is he going to think I'm absolutely off my rocker? My dad was a New York City police officer who was not a fan of this subject matter and absolutely said one of 2 things to me. 1, don't sully our name, and 2, don't ever let me find out you're working with the police. So this was so out of the realm.
This was taboo for
this
you.
Was hugely taboo. So there was a part of me that was being slightly energetically rebellious by even doing this. But I felt like, you know what, if I could help, let me try. But I felt a pull towards saying yes to this.
Why?
I don't know. I don't know, because I normally said no. Like when people would ask me, like regular people ask me to work on cases, I'm like, no, I don't do that. Like, it's not my thing. But
Was there a part of you like, if I can do this, I can, show my dad that heck,
yeah, I
have the you're wrong and I'm right.
Billy, I don't think I got to that point for years, but I think you're spot on with that. But I also think that there was a level of, I started doing this work at 15. And I wore glasses at 15 when I didn't need them, so people would perceive me as being older and like maybe wiser, because nobody wanted to take the 15-year-old kid seriously. So I think I was always fighting for credibility. I was constantly looking for validation and for the process, not for me. And I think that, the prestige of, wow, an FBI agent is looking to come for your assistance. How do you say no? It's like when HBO was doing a documentary called Life After Life. It was like America Undercover, Life After Life. And they invited me to come on back in like 1999. And they said, we have Dr. Gary Schwartz, who is, at the University of Arizona. He wants to do double-blind studies to test your abilities. It was me and a number of other mediums. And I was like, how do we not say yes to that? Like, how do you not say yes, right? So to me, it fell in that bucket. It was, I think I need to say yes.
Civic duty.
I don't know. I think it was more of a responsibility to the subject matter. I take what I do so seriously that I want people to see it as being legitimate and real, and not this like, woo-woo out there, supernatural, crazy, performative thing. I want people to recognize it's just energy, and the way we can all recognize our loved ones and friends in spirit, because grief is a very real thing. So now, if this could lend credibility in some way, but it wasn't like I was doing it for the public, because we never discussed it.
No, never.
Like my rule with him was, I'll help you, but don't put my name anywhere. Like,
that was my rule too.
And his rule was like, well, I want to keep my job, so we're good, So we went clandestine for like
25 years.
Yep.
Well, you got over it because you have a book together, so
yeah.